Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Suited Shootist. And as promised, I'm going to be continuing in the series of my actual EDC in various levels of dress. So I started out with kind of the most basic one, which is my true everyday carry. And next, I'm going to be touching on kind of the mid range, the dapper, casual, or something to that effect, where it's not a suit and tie, not the most formal, but something where you just kind of want to elevate and pick things up a little bit. So this is fairly typical of if, say, my wife and I are going out for a nice dinner, or we're going out for a show, or something to that effect, and it's usually going to be either dark denim or slacks and a sport coat or a vest. I didn't really feel a need to touch on the vest specifically because really it's the same as what I talked about last week, just with the vest as the cover garment. Same thing for the tuckable holster. I might do kind of a dedicated tuckable holster video in and of itself, but again, it's kind of the same thing. It's the same rig that I talked about. It's just that the shirt's tucked in over it. So if the circumstance is such that you either don't want to go that route or you can't for whatever reason, this is suitably different enough that I thought it was worth talking about on its own. So let's start again with the less lethal. As I mentioned, my Palm OC is always with me. It is fairly small and lightweight, so there's really no reason to not always have it on board. Really, for the most part, I still keep it in the same place, right side hip pocket. You could get away with stashing it in the jacket pocket, but it starts to kind of bulge the pocket and break up the lines of the jacket, which kind of defeats the point. The idea of a well-tailored jacket is to create a more flattering silhouette. So I prefer, since there's not too much bulk in it, to just keep it in that same hip pocket where it usually lives. Illumination. As of right now, I'm still sticking with the mod light. Now, this is really where this comes into play because this is a much smaller package than my previous Phoenix, but it gives me dramatically better performance. Previously, before I got my hands on this, I was using a through night or a AA flashlight of some sort. I forget the exact make and model. And it was a considerable step down in performance. But, the trade-off was that it still was a hand light and something that wasn't nearly as big and bulky as a full tactical flashlight. Still carry medical as well. And this is actually where the sport coat really comes in handy because a lot of them have a pen pocket or a business card pocket. And that holds a tourniquet just fine. And it's slim enough that it doesn't really screw with how the jacket lies either. So I can still have medical on hand. It's not the most secure thing on the planet. So arguably, if I want to get in a tussle, I'd probably lose it, if we're being perfectly honest. But it's still a good way to have it on hand. Now, the firearm is where things get a little bit more interesting because I've toyed with a couple of things here. For the longest time, I would just go with the Glock 19 tucked because, again, it's consistency. I'm used to my gun being there. I'm used to that draw stroke. And so it also allows me to carry the same firearm that I typically do. The drawback, and I actually tested this out last week, is that my draw to first shot from a tucked holster is about 1.75 to 2 seconds. So it's about a half a second slower than my standard draw from just a closed front cover garment like what I did last week. That's why I started playing with pocket carry, because from starting with the hand on the pistol, my draw to first shot for something like this is still about 1.3 to 1.5. Now, you're talking about a 32 pocket gun versus a 9mm HST. So yeah, it's not going to be quite as effective. Now I know there's probably some folks out there that are losing their mind because they saw this come out of a pocket. They see the clip draw on there. It's like, he's not using a holster. Yes, I am. My preferred pocket carry setup is this right here. It is a MDTS pocket shield that I have bolted just a regular neoprene style pocket holster to. And so that allows me to run this pretty effectively. Now, you can see it's not the most discreet thing on the planet. There is still visibly something there. I'm kind of okay with that for two reasons. Number one, this is not something where I would necessarily use it in a non-permissive environment if you are carrying against a policy, because again, it is visible. But you kind of have an added layer of concealment when the jacket buttons. So, like this, it's not quite as obvious. Now, yeah, the jacket's stopping before the gun does, so it's still visible. But it's one of those trade-offs that you really kind of have to play with. So this is one of those instances where you're going to have to figure out kind of what your risk profile is and have a good understanding of what your abilities are. Because for me, my current logic, which is always subject to change, is that a slightly less ballistically capable, more accessible pistol is preferable to the ideal gun that I got to work harder to get to. Also, this is a lot easier to draw and shoot one-handed than the tucked Glock is. So, again, you need to figure out what's going to work best for you. I've found that for this type of circumstance, this combo is fairly appropriate. It all tends to fly under the radar. Nothing is super attention grabbing, and you can still be adequately equipped while, being suitably dressed. Now, if you happen to find yourself in Nakatomi Tower and you're facing down 5 dudes with machine guns, yeah, you're going to have a bad day. But that's not what this is for. This is not for going and getting into a fight. This is for going about your life and having the appropriate skills and tools necessary to extricate yourself from a problem. If you're the type that you're gonna be running towards gunfire, you're going and getting into trouble, justifiably, something to that effect, this is probably not going to be enough. So it's all very situational. Context is key. Hope you found this useful, guys. I hope everybody has a great week. Again, keep the subscribes coming on YouTube. I really appreciate that. That's supremely helpful. Also, give us a like over on Instagram and on the Facebook page as well. And keep an eye out. We got some fun stuff coming up. I don't want to get into too much detail yet, but we got some neat things coming. So appreciate you joining me again, and I'll catch everybody next week.